This is TalkLoudRadio.com.
The deep one for the end zone. Phelan is down there. Oh, he got it! He got it! He got it! Touchdown! Jordan. Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan.
What is going on, guys? All right, welcome to episode 37 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Of course, you're presented by TalkLoudRadio.com. We're available on all your major podcast networks, iTunes, Stitcher, etc. We come at you live every Tuesday and Friday night on the Facebook page, goingfor2.com. Streaming in the app, of course, the Going for Two app that you can get for iOS and Android. And now we are also on YouTube as well. All right, guys, we had some real football last night. Actually got to watch a real game. Wasn't a very good game. Unfortunately, it was kind of ugly, kind of sloppy. A bunch of penalties were being called. It wasn't the best kickoff to the season. It was delayed to begin with. But it was real football. It really counted, so we at least have that. This weekend, of course, we're going to be having a lot more football. Pretty much every team is going to be playing this weekend. And then, of course, there's 4 teams playing on Monday nights. So we're going to deep dive into the slate for both FanDuel and DraftKings tonight. And joining me tonight, of course, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, Gerson. How you doing tonight, man?
Oh, dude, I'm doing great. I'm so ready for football. If I could cry, I would cry, but I can't.
All right. And also coming on with us, I don't have as good an intro for you, Tim. I just kind of did it off the top of my head. So, Tim Strobel, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. Like Gerson said, ready to go. And these DraftKings prices have been out for so long. I'm ready for this slate to get here already.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they put it out so early that by the time we actually get to it, there's so much value because we got injuries during the preseason and everything else. So, but we'll get into all that stuff here pretty shortly. So what y'all think of last night's game? What was your thoughts on last night's game? Was it a good kickoff to the season, you think?
It's ugly.
Yeah.
Preseason, like half the game.
Yep, exactly.
My only takeaway is the flags, man. It's like, holy shit, man. If we're going to be calling games like that, games are going to be long. And it's funny because the NFL been trying to, we're going to change the kickoff rule to make games shorter. Oh, we're going to do this and that. But in reality, these flags, I think there was like 16 flags in the first half.
Ridiculous. Yep, ridiculous.
Unreal.
Agreed. All right, well, let's not waste any time then. Let's just jump right into the slate. We'll kick it off here with the quarterbacks, of course. Let me pull up my FanDuel here. So we'll start with the quarterbacks. Gerson, you're pretty much going to be doing mostly FanDuel prices, and Tim, we'll have you doing the DraftKings stuff. I got both pulled up, so I'll give it a little bit of my thoughts on both sites. We'll go to you, Gerson, first. Give us a couple of your top-tier quarterbacks that you're looking at tonight.
So, basically on FanDuel, my strategy is always to, in GPP, pay down and cash game pay up. So you got to pick your poison, basically, with whatever field of game you play. My cash game quarterback this week is probably my cash game and GPP quarterback is going to be Kirk Cousins at home versus the San Francisco 49ers. I always look for games that have more than 24 points and their favorite. And Minnesota has that. I mean, I think they have right now with Vegas got them at like 25. If I'm correct. Yeah, 26. And they're supposed to win by 5.5. So I like Kirk Cousins with all those weapons he got. And 49ers defense is just among the worst on the run and the pass. I mean, their pass probably a little bit better because of that. I don't know how to say his name. That safety.
Yeah.
Creek something or something like that. But either way, I don't mind him. But I like Kirk Cousins at the elite, 7,600 on FanDuel. And then the other quarterback I'm looking at is Tom Brady. A lot of people won't want to pay up for him. But in reality, Tom Brady is ridiculous. In the last 3 years, he's averaged over 25 points per game on opening game, and he's at home. And one thing that you got to know, the Houston Texans defense, run defense, is elite. Like, they're really good when they're healthy. And the way you're going to beat them is through the air. In that game, it's supposed to be one of the top Vegas games. I mean, if you don't have exposure to that game, it's going to be kind of hard to, catch. And he's going to have Gronk, White, Burkhead. I don't care about Philip Dorsett and those other guys, the little ones, but Chris Hogan. I mean, overall, Tom Brady's just better to play him during the beginning of the season because he doesn't get old.
All right. Tim, what you got for us on DraftKings? Anybody different plays you got over on DraftKings?
Yeah, I think Gerson's right. I think more and more people are starting to pay down for quarterback, which I still think is a good strategy in cash. But I do think in tournaments you want to try and get some exposure to higher priced quarterbacks. I love the Brady call. I agree about Houston. You want to attack them through the air. Another pay up for this week a lot is Drew Brees. Brees at home, I said, is always kind of a lock. You get Tampa Bay, whose defensive backs are just not good. They have tons of injuries back there, so I'm real big on Brady as well. And I love the Cousins call. I think in the mid-range, a lot of people are going to go for Phillip Rivers, and I do think it makes a good play. But I think a good pivot to him is going to be Kirk Cousins. Won't probably have as much ownership, has a higher team total. I think that's a great call.
Yeah, I agree with both of those calls there. I love me some Drew Brees. I saw that's the thing on Roto World tonight where they got basically two of their DBs are doubtful to play. They're going to be starting a second-round rookie at cornerback, so it's going to be ugly there. So I'm definitely all over some Drew Brees. Give me a Drew Brees, Mike Thomas, Alvin Kamara stack, and I'm good to go. My only guy that y'all haven't talked about yet was the other quarterback in that Patriots game. That's Deshaun Watson. I think you have some regression this year from last year, the way he played last year. But in this game, I think he's still going to be Deshaun Watson. I mean, I think he's going to be all over the field. He's got all the weapons that he needs there. I think Will Fuller's questionable, so that might change my thought a little bit because I do love me some Will Fuller because behind Will Fuller, they don't have much. I think they have Kiki Coty and Bruce Ellington, I think. So if Will Fuller's not in there, I might change my thought on Deshaun Watson. But I think if you can get a Deshaun Watson, D-Hop stack and then bring it back with the correlation with like Hogan, I think it's going to be a good thing for that game there. So that's the only quarterback I have that we haven't mentioned. Let's go to the mid-tier quarterbacks, Gerson. Let's go mid-tier and value. Go ahead and give us both.
Okay, so someone got to say it. So Andy Dalton, man. I don't know about you guys, but it makes me go like, ugh. I know just like last week on the podcast, I said he was the red pebble gun. Well, this week I hope he's the red rifle. He comes out like slinging that ball, man. Because honestly, the Colts defense is among the worst, first to pass and to run. And one thing I love to do is I always check for Vegas, and if I can prove Vegas wrong, and I kind of have not a prediction, but kind of like a gut feeling. Right now, they're predicting Indianapolis to win by 3, I believe, if it hasn't changed from last night. Yeah, they're pushed by 3. And I honestly believe Cincinnati will win this game. I think they have a better defense. They have a better offensive line, defensive line, just overall team, in my opinion. And one thing we know about Andrew Luck at home, he loves to get in shootout. And when he gets in shootout, Cincinnati's going to have to throw the ball too. So I like red pebble gun. I mean, Andrew Dalton, his price at $6,800 on FanDuel. You can bring him back with A.J. Green, maybe John Ross, and, well, Tyler Eifert, the human robot, but over them, cheap stacked with Andy Dalton. And we all know the narrative, A.J. Green on the road, so.
Yep.
Overall, that defense is trash, man.
Agreed. You got anybody besides Dalton on your list there, Tim, that you got for values or for mid-tier?
Yeah, I like the Dalton call a lot. I mentioned Phillip Rivers a minute ago. I think he's a great play in the mid-range at home against the Kansas City Chiefs defense that just wasn't what they were before. He's got all of his receivers healthy. And one guy that I'm going to have a cheaper guy in my lineups, I'm going to have some tournament exposure, is Case Keenum. I think that he's 5,100. a lot of people are looking at other plays in that range, but I think that Keenum's got a pretty good ceiling for 5,100. You can stack him with Sanders, you can stack him with Thomas, and get some points out of that at a fairly low price in terms of stack, and that'll allow you to plug in a lot of higher price guys at other positions.
Yeah, I agree with both those calls. I actually had Dalton written down as my value play as well. So I don't have much to talk about because y'all basically took all my plays as you always do. But there is one mid-tier guy that I want to mention as a tournament play, and that's the opposite of the Andy Dalton call, and that's Andrew Luck. People are going to be scared of him with the injury. As you mentioned, he loves the shootout. He's going to be at home. He doesn't have too many weapons, but he has zero run game because I think Mac actually might play in this game. Last I heard, he was questionable, so he might be able to get in there, but I doubt he plays too much. Neiman Hines, of course, is there. He fumbled like 4 times in the preseason, touched the ball like 10 times and fumbled it 4, so that's not a good thing. Wilkins is probably the best running back they have that's healthy right now, but I just don't know if they're going to have enough against that Cincinnati defense in order to run the ball. So it's going to be a lot of passing, and even if he's passing to guys like Philip Dorsett and guys like that, I think he's still going to be. He'll still be Andrew Luck. He'll still be what we remember him to be a couple years ago. Against this defense, I kind of like Andrew Luck as well. All right, let's move on to the running backs now. Let's go. We'll go with you first, Tim. Let's talk about some DraftKings running backs. Who you got as your elite tier in DraftKings?
Yeah, I think the guy that's going to be probably the highest owned player in this price range, at least I think so anyway, it's going to be Alvin Kamara. He's my top play on the week at the position. With Mo Mark Ingram, there's only 2 running backs active on that roster. He obviously killed Tampa Bay in the same spot last year. You love running backs at home that are favored. So I think he checks all those boxes. It's also a high team total. I think he's got a great opportunity to have a great day, even at the high price. And then another guy that I'm going to be having some tournament exposure, probably won't have in cash, is, of course, David Johnson. I don't know if you guys watched The Edge, but I loved the Al Smithel rant about David Johnson. I think he pretty much nailed it on the head there. He's not going to have nearly as much ownership as he probably should in the run. So I think he's going to make a great tournament play. And so I think in terms of the top guys, those are the ones I'm going to have the most exposure to.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. What you got, Gerson, for FanDuel?
Well, he took Alvin Kamara. Obviously, he's going to be a great player. I like David Johnson for the low ownership, like he said. Both good plays. I guess if we're going a little bit higher tier, I'm just going to say this. This guy that I'm going to mention, he's a steal on DraftKings. Melvin Gordon is going to be a great play for me this week. I don't think Kansas City is an elite defense, nor even an average defense, to be honest. I think this is going to be the worst defense they put on the field for like the last probably decade, I'd say. I mean, they used to be just like, used to like fear them a little bit, go at their house and stuff. But I just, putting out the worst defense they've had in like almost a decade. So I love Melvin Gordon. He's gonna get the ball a lot in this game. He's gonna get catches, and he's starting to become game script proof. People think he can't catch balls, but last year he caught 50+ balls, and this year he's gonna catch more. I like Melvin Gordon. The offensive line's a little bit healthier than last year in this game. And Kansas City just lost Eric Berry, too, their safety. Yep. Doubtful for the game on Sunday. Melvin Gordon. After that, I think it's a little bit difficult because on FanDuel it's 0.5 PPR. But for his price, I really like Christian McCaffrey. 7,500 on FanDuel. And right now they're saying he's going to get a workhorse load. And I don't know if you guys watched the preseason, but this guy, Norv Turner, the offensive coordinator, when he says something, he usually comes with it. And McCaffrey got the goal line touches, and he broke off for like what, a 70-yard run?
70-yard run
in the preseason.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, I just love McCaffrey in every aspect of the game. I mean, I love McCaffrey. Those are my top guys beside Kamara and David Johnson right now.
All right, yeah. I got Kamara as well. I think he'll be one of the highest owned. He'll definitely be the highest owned in cash for sure. And I also like David Johnson as well against that Redskins defense that doesn't look much improved from last year, and they were terrible last year. So that's a good call there. The only one I wanted to add to the list would be Leonard Fournette. I think that he's a great call there. I don't think that the Jacksonville Jaguars want to pass the ball a lot. They're going to want to run the ball quite a bit. They do have a decent quarterback. We'll give him that, Blake Bortles, but they lost their number one receiver. They do have Keelan Cole there. Of course, we'll talk about him later on. But I love me some Leonard Fournette. We saw him in the preseason. He looked good, broke off a huge run during the preseason, breaking tackles. I think Fournette is going to be a great play this weekend. All right, let's move down to the mid-tier in value. Tim, what you got for the running backs mid-tier in value?
Yeah, well, Gerson made a good point about both Christian McCaffrey and Melvin Gordon. I think they're going to end up being the two running backs that I probably have the most exposure to overall, just because of the savings on DraftKings. But in terms of value plays, a couple guys I'm looking at. Obviously, the chalk and what may end up being the most owned player on DraftKings is James Conner. With Le'Veon Bell out, he was already going to be a good play. We mentioned in the last pod that one thing that will certainly affect a game in terms of weather is if it's really storming, a lot of high winds, stuff like that. We're expecting a type of game like that in Cleveland tomorrow. Obviously, keep an eye on that in case it changes, but I think it could end up being a ground and pound type of game. So I'm definitely looking at both James Conner and on the other side, Carlos Hyde. Maybe not somebody I'm going to have in cash, at least Carlos Hyde anyway, but definitely some guys I want some exposure to in tournaments. And then a guy that I was really heavy on originally and I backed off a little bit. I still want a good bit of exposure to him, but he probably won't be in my cash lineup like he would have been before. Houston, as Gerson mentioned, is still good against the run. He's going to get some opportunities for targets as well, but I think at the similar price range, Connor's the better play.
I actually missed the name on who you said there because we kind of cut out a little bit. Who were you talking about at the end there?
That was Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead, okay, yep.
Yeah, I actually really like James White as kind of a pivot off of him. I still think he's going to have some good ownership. I don't think White will have as much ownership, and I think he's also got a great ceiling. So I kind of put those guys in the same category.
All right, good stuff. We keep cutting in and out there. I know you got a storm out there that you're dealing with, so I'll keep losing you for a second. But good call there. Actually, the Patriots, I think, up until about a few days ago, only had 3 receivers on their entire lineup. I think they just signed somebody off of waivers from the Jets, so they have four receivers and a return man. So, Burkhead and White could be very busy. I think they split out wide a bunch of times, not wide, but in the slot a bunch of times last year. So it's a good call there. He can get some PPR points there on the DraftKings site. All right, Gerson, what you got for your values in mid-tiers?
Yeah, the New England Patriots signed another white boy from Walmart, so put him in your lineup. No, I'm kidding. You said this is mid-tier and value, right?
Yep.
Okay. One thing, you got to be open-minded, everybody. I'm serious. Be open-minded. I'm just kidding. No, one play I love this week is Alec Collins at 6,700. One of the greatest things about him is that you can do a correlation with the defense. Baltimore's defense is probably going to be the shock defense this week. I really like that correlation. Alec Collins is a beast. I already mentioned it last week. If you listened to last week, this guy, when he gets the workload, he can get you 20 points. Even on FanDuel, it's going to be a little bit harder to get 20 points, but I wouldn't be shocked if it comes out with 17, 18 points in this game because they're going to go up, and they're up. I think they're spread up to like 6.5 right now.
Yep.
And that's what you look for in running back. You want them to be up. You want a good defense behind them, and you want touches.
Yep.
You want total touches. And right now, like last year, they were kind of like iffy between him, Javorius Allen, and can't even remember the third guy. I think it was Kenneth Dixon or something like that. And they were like rotating them all out. Now they know Alec Collins can handle the workload. And they got Jonda back. He's a little healthier. I just love Alec Collins this week at his price on FanDuel at 6,700. And then the other running back I'm looking at right now is, oh, by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention this. Great call, James Conner. Love that call because he's going to be shocked and everybody's going to want him, including your mom. But Love James Conner. Right now, one thing I wanted to talk about Rex Burkhead. Earlier on, there was a report from a beat writer that said that Rex Burkhead is going to get the heavy load. So I'm kind of back on Rex Burkhead. Before I was kind of off. I already talked to you about this, Tim. Like before, I might fade just all the running back because I looked at the stats and everything of what happened with last year with James White and Deion Lewis. These guys got shut down, and they're only getting J.J. Watt and what's his name back, the other Marcellus Wiley or whatever his name is.
Right. Yep.
They're getting them back, and they added Tyrone Matthews. I mean, but if Rex Burkhead at 6,300 on FanDuel, he's a great play too. Another guy I want to touch on is Royce Freeman, baby. Roll Royce, 6,000 on FanDuel. And I don't believe this Seattle Seahawks is good at all. They're going to be missing at least 7 of their defensive return guys of last year or something like that.
Yep.
I think I saw someone tweet out that, what's his name, Earl Thomas is going to be on limit or like play limit. That defense is just going to be horrendous. And I love them at home versus Seattle. And in a high-altitude game, they're going to run the ball. And you know what? A lot of people are worried about Booker. I'm not worried about Booker because Royce Freeman proved it in the preseason that he was the man. At 6,000, that allows me to get James Conner and him as a value and then allows me to pay up for like Kamara, David Johnson, Melvin Gordon, or McCaffrey,
Yep.
But those are most of my guys that I'm going to be on FanDuel.
All right, good stuff. I wrote down on my notes when I saw who y'all picked. Y'all took all my guys, so I can't even sell it. There's not a guy that I like any more than what y'all already mentioned to even try to put it out there. I don't want to just pick someone just to pick someone. So we'll just move on to it from there, and we'll go ahead and jump in. I'm gonna skip over receiver. We'll do receiver after.
One point real quick.
Yep. Go ahead.
I think lineup construction tends to differ week to week. Kind of where the value is. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, this week the value is really at running back. So I think that now that FanDuel has gotten rid of the kicker and moved to a flex like DraftKings, you're going to really – chances are you're going to want to run 3 running backs.
Yep.
If you could roster take 4, but if you're looking at to decide, who am I going to stick in that flex spot, chances are this week the most optimal strategy is probably going to be going running back.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think all my lineups that I've built so far all pretty much have 3 running backs. I didn't put a receiver, I don't think, on any of my lineups. So, yeah, good call there on roster construction. I know there's a couple times last year, especially on DraftKings with that flex spot, because last year, FanDuel didn't have the flex spot, where it was optimal to play 2 tight ends because there just wasn't a whole lot of value at the other positions. And I remember last year we did that, as a group. We did that a couple of times last year, so it worked out. But this week, I agree. I think it's running back for sure.
Because I thought you were going to touch on it, Jeff, but you said we got all your running back. Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley at his price. Did you guys already mention it?
No, yeah, we didn't. I skipped over him. You're right.
I mean, unless I'm hearing impaired, so I mean, Saquon Barkley at home at 7,600. A lot of people. I believe he's going to be under-owned.
Yep.
Maybe I may be wrong, but people are going to fear the Jacksonville Jaguars run defense. But in reality, they did really good in the second half, but they kind of fell away in the playoff and in other areas. At home, I think Saquon is like a script-proof running back too. He can receive the ball and run the ball. So overall, I like Saquon Barkley, but James Conner is 5,000 on FanDuel. So my advice to people that play James Conner, I'm correct, right, Jeff? He's 5,000?
Let me pull it up here. It sounds right. I know I got him in my lineup. It sounds right.
He's 5,000. Okay. James Conner's 5,000 on FanDuel. Like Tim said, and he alluded to, you want to put cheap running backs in your flex. Either cheap running back, cheap tight end, or a value wide receiver. I would go more for volume and touches, though. So I would go more for running back. But 5,000 at James Conner, he's going to be the nut this week.
Agreed. I had one stat, and I skipped over Barkley and the for time basically, but I had one stat that I wanted to bring up with Barkley, and going on that what you said about the Jacksonville defense. Everyone's scared of the Jacksonville defense. So that last year, I know you use this as well, Gerson, but DVOA for defense on Football Outsiders, they were number 1 against the pass in DVOA, which is a better stat to sort of measure defenses if you don't know what DVOA is. Check it out at footballoutsiders.com. So they were number 1 against the pass. They were 27th ranked against the run. So good call there on Saquon Barkley. I think that they will play good pass defense, and they will force them to sort of run Barkley. And I think the Giants will be more than happy to do that and keep Eli from throwing interceptions. So great call on Barkley there. All right, we're going to skip over receiver. We're going to just go right to the tight ends and defense, and then we can do some receivers after the break because there's so many receivers to talk about that we may have to take a little bit longer on that. So let's skip over to the tight ends here. And Gerson, we'll start with you this time. Who you got for your top tight end?
Well, on FanDuel, since we now are allowed to use the flex position, yay! We can finally pay up for a tight end. I used to not pay up for tight end at all on FanDuel because it's almost like crippled your lineup.
Right.
But now you have that flex spot. It allowed you to get more value in there. But man, dude, it's Gronk or smash, bro. This week, man, Gronk or smash, man. It's just like value or it's Gronk for me. But Gronk this week is the top play. I'm gonna go out on limb. I think Gronk on DraftKings, he could be the second highest scoring player.
Wow.
That's how high I think he will be. And then on FanDuel, I mean, it's a little bit more difficult, but he is a touchdown machine. If Gronk comes out of this game, I am so high on Gronk with 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, I wouldn't be shocked because they have nobody else to catch balls but Gronk and Hogan.
Yep.
And they'll have Burkhead and what's his name, White on the little slot and little, Bill Belichick.
Dink and dunk.
The illegal formation he's gonna run that he always does. And I think it's Gronk at the top tier. After that, I'm not going for anything else at the elite top tier. I have heard talk on Delaney Walker, but I'm pretty sure Tim can cover Delaney a lot more than I can. I mean, I can, but I think Tim has better points on him.
All right, Tim. Who you got for your lead? Is Delaney Walker up there?
Yeah, well, he mentioned Gronk. I love that call. I always think about leverage when I'm making my lineups, and I think that Chris Hogan will be really popular, who we're going to get to in a minute, at 6,100, and Gronk is only 6,900. You're talking about a guy that potentially has a much higher ceiling for an $800 difference. We know you want to attack Houston through the air. He obviously had a big game against them last year. So I agree with Gerson. I think that there's a lot of interest in paying up for Gronk this week. He did mention my love for Delaney Walker. We know that, or I don't know, Miami was kind of one of those under-the-radar teams to target with tight ends. They just kind of crept up throughout the year, and by the end, their DVOA was in the bottom 10 in the NFL against the tight end. There was some talk that he might have been injured, but he's not on the injury report at all this week. He got full practices in. We know Mariota loves to go to him, especially in the red zone. And I think tight end's kind of interesting this week, how you want to pay for it. So if you're not wanting to pay all the way up for Gronk and you're not wanting to punt down, I think Walker makes a really nice mid-range option on draft.
Yeah, I like Walker as well. I have him in a few of my lineups. He's my only, as you said, my only mid-tier guy. I'm Gronk or value pretty much. But I do like Walker's value. I mean, his volume in that offense. I think he's going to get a ton of balls. And I, like Gerson said, I think it's Gronk or value pretty much. But Walker would be the only one I would kind of squeeze in the middle there. So let's go ahead and talk about that value, Gerson. Who do you got for your value tight ends?
Are we talking like value, or are we talking like dirt cheap? Because you know how I do it, man. I go like all the way down there. So I'm going to give you a value tight end. I'm pretty sure Tim's going to cover the other guy, but because he's going to be really popular on DraftKings. Jordan Reed, I like Jordan Reed as a value. At $4,000 on DraftKings and on FanDuel, he is, man, I pulled up the wrong. But anyways, Jordan Reed, hold on, let me find Jordan Reed real quick. He is $5,800.
Yep. So
in reality, we're paying for a guy that when he plays, he's healthy. He gets treated basically like a lighter Gronk. And if we know one thing about Alex Smith, he loves his security blanket. So now, just in case everybody didn't know, Alex Smith plays for the Washington Redskins now. They decided to let Kirk Cousins walk.
And if you didn't know that, stop watching this podcast because you don't belong on here.
Jordan Reed at 5,800 on FanDuel and 4,000 on DraftKings. I like him a lot when he's healthy. When he's healthy, guys, I checked with Tim. He checked the injury report, and he told me he was not on the injury list. Yes. So therefore, that means you can play him, guys, safely. Unless he gets a cramp during the warm-up or something, that little vagina, I would not be shocked. But I think he actually got hurt in pregame one time, if I'm correct.
I think you're right. He did. Yeah. And I had him rostered that day, and I think it was a little bit after lock that he got, he was ruled out because he got hurt in pregame.
So either way, when he's healthy, he's really not healthy, right? But I love him, Jordan Reed. The Cardinals no longer have Tyrone Matthews. He used to be kind of like a security for that safety, position to cover tight end. I mean, he's not that tall, but I mean, he used to put press on him and whatnot. Jordan Reed on both sides, but that's the guy I'm rolling for like a mid-share value.
All right, good stuff. What about like your low value? What about your dirt cheap guy?
Oh man, there's this guy named Mike Gesicki. Plays for the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if you guys heard him. He also used to play for Penn State. He's a rookie. And he dropped 0 balls in the last 2 years when he was at Penn State. This guy is a beast. I'm telling you guys, he's athletic. He's kind of like Evan Ingram, like 2.0 Evan Ingram, I'm telling you. And one thing that we checked today, and of course, my injury man, Tim, thank you. I don't know the guy. I already forgot. See, the safety, Cyphrin, he's an all-pro safety. He's hurt. He's not playing for the season, right? He's out for the season?
Yeah, he's gone for the season, yep.
And then the other safety, he's hurt too. I forgot his name already, but anyway. So we have 2 safeties that are out. And if we know one thing, the Titans can stop the run, but they can't stop the pass. And then we've got Kenny Still, Danny Amendola, and I don't know who else. But they're all, I'm 6'1". I'm taller than all of those guys. So Mike Gesicki is literally going to be the tallest target out there. So if they get in the red zone, Mike Gesicki is going to get probably the red zone look, I mean, I don't think you really want to be throwing that to a 5'10" Kenny Still, But he is, I think right now on DraftKings, he's 2,800, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, FanDuel, he's 47.
47, almost minimum price. 4,500 minimum price, right, Jeff?
Yep.
So I like Mike Gesicki. I mean, it's kind of a gamble, but sometimes in GPPs, that's what you got to do. He is not a cash game viable, so don't even think about playing him in cash game.
GPP only. All right, let's go to you, Tim. Who you got for some of your values here on DraftKings?
Yeah, Gerson probably named the 2 guys that I'll have some exposure to, Jordan Reed and Mike Gesicki. One guy that I was initially high on, I mean, I'm still interested, but probably not as high as I was, is Jesse James. There's a good, Vance McDonald was ruled out today. They will not have him for Pittsburgh. We know he had a good game against them in the same spot last year. We know you target Cleveland with tight ends. I do think that there is a possibility that with the weather we might see some short kind of dump-off passes. So at 2,700, I still think he's in play.
Yeah.
I don't think he's somebody that people will have a lot of exposure to. I think, like he said, a lot of people are going to do Reed. A lot of people are going to pay up for Gronk. So if you want to punt with somebody that actually I think has some decent upside, is Jesse James. Paying down for him at 2,700 really allows you to open up some other value in your lineup. So I think that's an option at that price.
Yeah, I agree. I think somebody on Facebook actually mentioned him. Personally, I'm not a fan of him. He's what I call a catch and fall down guy. He's only going to get you what you pass for. He's not going to get too much after the fact. But he is a good red zone target. I think last year opening day he may have had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
so I think on DraftKings he's definitely more viable because he's a good PPR guy. He'll get those full point per PPR. So I do like him on DraftKings. On FanDuel I don't like him as much. I think there's some better value there on FanDuel. And one of the guys that we hadn't talked about yet, I'm going to bring him up, that's Jack Doyle for the Colts. A lot of people are afraid to play him simply because Eric Ebron is there now. I think Andrew Luck still likes Doyle. I think Doyle last year had something crazy. I'm trying to look it up now while I'm talking, and at the same time look it up on the computer here. But
the game from last year?
Yeah, the game from last year where he had an amazing game last year. And I'm also trying to see, he had a ton of targets. I mean, it was like a ridiculous amount of targets last year.
He had 14 targets, 12 receptions, 121 yards, and 1 touchdown. By the way, just to add to that, that was highest tight end total of the whole season for all tight ends, I believe.
Yep, exactly. And on the season, he had 108 targets with 80 receptions. Now, granted, I mean that's a ton of volume right there. I think I saw a stat that if Gronk had gotten that type of volume in New England, that he would have broken all kinds of records, because I mean that's crazy for a tight end to get that many, especially for a guy that you don't really think of as an athlete or a top tier tight end.
You mean like a dad? Yeah, that's what he looks like.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Wow. I love that call, dude. I love Jack. I thought Tim was going to mention him because on DraftKings, he's an excellent play.
Yeah.
On FanDuel, I like him too. One of the guys I wanted to mention, I don't know if you're going to go over more tight ends. Jeff, are you going over another tight end?
Go ahead. You got another one. Go ahead and talk about him.
Tyler Eifert. On FanDuel, he is a little bit pricier for my taste because, well, he's another human robot that likes to get injured.
Jordan Reed 2.0.
I'm giving you guys all the guys that are going to be crippled after one game, so you might as well take advantage of it, you know? On FanDuel, he is 5,500. On DraftKings, I believe he is 3,400 or 36? No, 3,400. So when I look for tight end, I always look for volume and target. And Tyler Eifert, when he's healthy, he gets those targets and volume. Last year, I mean, when he was healthy, I mean, in the second game against Washington, he got 12 targets. He gets 5, 6, 11, 6, you know. So we're facing Indianapolis. The game's supposed to go over almost a 50-point over-under, and they're going to be playing either ahead or behind. Pick your poison. But I think they're going to be ahead, and if they get ahead, they're going to have to pass the ball. And when Andrew Luck comes back at you, that's a great correlation right there. So with Tyler Eifert at that price, and there's only one time you want to play him when he's healthy, so right now is the time. But I think Eifert's my only other guy that I don't have on the list that we haven't mentioned. So other than that, that's what I like.
All right, good stuff. All right, we're going to save defense and receiver for after the break. We're running a little bit long here, so we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll do defenses first, and we'll save the best for last and do receivers last. You want to hang out for a little bit?
Yeah.
3 shows, 1 podcast. The Talk Loud Radio podcast combines sports, nerds, and pop culture with the Pay Me No Mind Show. Just down-to-earth sports and entertainment. The Clash of the Nerds Let's Podcast Show. The latest movies and video games with a dash of comedy. And the Armchair Fantasy Show. 8. Sleep Fantasy Sports. Find Talk Loud Radio on all the major podcast services like iTunes and Stitcher at TalkLoudRadio.com and streaming on the Going for 2 app for iOS and Android. Talk Loud Radio, where sports, nerds, and pop culture collide.
Do you need advice for your fantasy football team? How about your DraftKings or FanDuel lineup? Going4two.com has you covered. Going4two.com has exclusive content from some of the best fantasy writers in the industry, whose credentials include Bleacher Report, Fantasy Pros, and Fantasy Life. From advice columns to player ranks, Going4two.com has it all. Sign up for our newsletter to have all of our content sent to your inbox. Start winning today. Visit Going4two.com, because no one remembers the extra point.
The echo chamber enhanced the flow at the block party, keeping MC head spinning like Dark Bacardi. This BAC is 2.3. Now the liver's damaged, but his lungs joint.
All right, welcome back. You are watching, of course, the Armchair Fantasy Show. This is the DFS edition, the Friday edition with Gerson and Tim. We are breaking down the slate for week 1. We've already gone through the quarterbacks and the tight ends. We're going to do the defenses and the receivers now. We'll start with the defenses, and we'll start on DraftKings. So we'll go to you, Tim. Give us your top defenses here.
Yeah. I think the chalky defense, I think Gerson alluded to it earlier, is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. Not only do they get Nathan Peterman, they get Nathan Peterman on the road. They traditionally have killed quarterbacks in those type of spots. I think they're going to be the highest on defense, most likely. So I definitely think you want some exposure to the Ravens. You probably want to get them in your cash games if you can. They had multiple games last year of double-digit points, so you don't want them to go off and not have them in your cash game lineup. Another team that I was pretty high on, but I backed off a little today, is the Chargers. They're more of a mid-range play, but I saw that they ruled Joey Bosa out today, so he won't play in this game. I still think the fact that they get Pat Mahomes on the road could end up being a great spot for the Chargers. But I think that if I'm going to pay up, if I'm not going to punch defense, I'm going to either have Ravens or Chargers.
All right, good stuff. You got any other elite defenses you want to talk about? I know the Ravens were one of your top ones, but any other ones you like, Gerson?
Did you mention the Saints?
He did not.
Okay, I thought you said Raven and Saints, but I'm not sure. I'm like Tim. Ravens are the top defense. I was looking at the Chargers, like he said, but Joey Bosa's hurt. Casey Hayward is, well, no, not Casey Hayward. The other guy, Jason Verrett, is hurt. And one thing we know about the Chargers, they're like a walking ambulance. I feel like I'm talking just about an ambulance show all day today. All these players injured. So I must be a curse for whatever pick I want. But no, I like the Saints defense versus Tampa Bay. I don't really believe that Tampa Bay is a great offense. Not a great offense, a great team overall. At home and playing Tampa Bay, they're like a +7, I think, right now, right?
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, they're a +9.5. So if that tells you anything, Vegas believes that Tampa Bay is going to blow out New Orleans going to blow out Tampa Bay. And that's one of the things I always look at Vegas with my defense. There's 3,800 on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, hold on one second, they are 4,600. The top, it's just, you're paying up for defense and cash games always, in my opinion. I mean, if you can pay down if you get a good mid-tier defense, but I mean, everybody's going to pay up for Baltimore. But other than that, I don't really see another elite defense to pay up for.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with the Saints as well as my my alternative to the Ravens. Ravens are, obviously the chalk. Just to kind of further the point on the Saints, I mean, the Saints are going to put up points, and they're going to force Fitzpatrick to throw the ball a ton. And that's basically what you're looking for in a defense is interceptions, sacks, any kind of, if you get a pick six, you get lucky, get a pick six. So the fact that they're going to be throwing the ball a lot to stay up with the Saints offense just kind of opens the door for more interceptions and more sacks. And, those are the things that you look for in a fantasy defense. And I agree. The Saints are going to be one of my top choices, especially for my tournaments as an alternative to the Ravens defenses. All right, let's look a little bit lower here. Let's go to Tim with some mid or value defenses. What you got?
Yeah, so I think if I'm not going to have Ravens or Chargers in my lineups, I'm probably going to punt down to the bottom. One team that I wasn't initially considering, but Gerson and a couple other people put me onto it, is the Cleveland Browns. Their team has gotten better since last year. We know Ben Roethlisberger splits on the road. And like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, this is supposed to be one of those weather games. We've had people saying, Cleveland Browns beat writers saying this looks like potentially the worst weather for a game that they've seen in many years. So just for those reasons, assuming that everything plays out the way we expect it to play, I think that it could make an interesting value play to pay all the way down. I made a joke earlier that my two favorite defenses on the slate are the highest priced and the lowest priced defenses. I think it kind of works kind of like tight end this week. It's the same spot as defense. Either you're paying all the way up or you're paying all the way down. There is one more team that I'm also considering, again, only for tournaments. This one's kind of a, start, if you will, is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. I think they're going to really struggle to move the ball through the air, so they're going to have to run the ball a lot. But I also think that their defense has improved a lot from last year. So I think that in a lot of the lineups that I'm not going to have Christian McCaffrey, I may have the Dallas Cowboys defense, because if they are able to shut down the run, I think that they could force Cam Newton to get into some bad situations. and he maybe, fumble a ball, throw a pick, and have it returned for a touchdown, and then it pays off value. So I think that if you're considering a punt on a tournament lineup, you don't want to play the Browns, I think you could play the Cowboys.
All right, good stuff. What about on FanDuel? What you got for some mid or value defenses, Gerson?
Okay, you totally cut out on me on that one, bud.
Oh, sorry.
I'm guessing you asked me for value or...
Yeah, value and mid-tier, yep.
Okay, well, since someone stole my thunder, as everybody know, I have been touting the Cleveland Browns defense since basically the summer. I don't even care about that hard knock shit. What I care about is what they do in the game, man. And what they did, well, actually, Nick Foles fucking sucks, dude. But in the preseason, they murdered the shit out of the Philadelphia Eagles' first offense. I mean, like, Myles Garrett legit took two guys and just, boom, shoved them and then got a sack. I'm like, dude, Myles Garrett is a beast, dude. And I believe that they've improved their defense a lot more. I think that bad weather, let's say the game gets played, right? We're all assuming that more than likely it'll NFL, the only way they cancel a game, or AKA, what do you call it? Delay it. If there's lightning. Right. So right now there's heavy wind and there's gonna be rain. So I'm gonna want that game, dude. I don't know if anybody here plays football. I have, but I know Tim does because he plays flag football, and you look like you played football back in your day, Jeff. I mean, he's not that old, everybody. He's only like 28, 29.
28, yep.
But anyway, so football weather, if you're playing in the rain, heavy wind, it's hard on offense to get it going. And they don't have lone Le'Veon Bell. I mean, I like James Conner, don't get me wrong. So that's the thing. One thing you have to think about, too, when you're playing the Cleveland Browns defense, you won't be able to play James Conner. So it'll be very hard for you to construct a roster with the Cleveland Browns. The best thing about them is their price. It is ridiculous. $3,000 on FanDuel. $2,000 on DraftKings, the cheapest among cheapest. I mean, the rosters you can construct with it on FanDuel. I can get DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Brown together on FanDuel. So, I mean, it's just incredible. But Cleveland Brown are my team.
All right, good stuff. I only have one to add to that list that y'all already kind of killed it, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. I think it can be a pretty good defense. They're at home against the Redskins. Redskins got a new quarterback. They got receivers that sort of are okay. They could be okay with Crowder and Josh Doxson and Paul Richardson. The running backs, Adrian Peterson's there. I guess this is like a revenge game for Adrian Peterson. He played there last year. But
he only played for like 16.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see this Redskins offense being very good. The Cardinals defense is not what they used to be, but they're still pretty good. They got some pretty good players over there. I think they can, especially being at home, they can shut the Redskins team down, get some good turnovers, get some sacks. And I think that the Cardinals at 4,100 on FanDuel is a pretty good play. I got them in a few of my tournaments. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the receivers now. We got a ton of receivers to look at. That's why I kind of saved them for last. Gerson, we'll start with you. Let's go with your elite receivers. Who do you got for your elite receivers?
I had.
And try to leave some for us.
Yeah. So the elite among elite is going to be Antonio Brown. He's going to be the smash play. I don't know if you guys saw when I posted Antonio Brown stats the last 16 games without what's his name, Le'Veon Bell. Basically, this guy is averaging almost 26 points per game. I mean, he is a beast among beasts. But the thing is, that weather does concern me a little bit. I had a shout out to Alec Pickus. He asked me early on, hey, what is the exposure going to be to Antonio Brown? I thought about it for a long 10 minutes or so, and then I'm like, wait, is he right? Could he be right? I had him at 40%, but I might take that down to 30%. And I max out Millie Makers, so that weather is going to be a big, big factor into my Antonio Brown. The other guy I like is AJ Green. As you guys already know, I'm big on if I already mentioned Tyler Eifert, AJ Dalton, you obviously got to have AJ Green in there, We all know the narrative, play A.J. Green on the road, matching up against one of the worst defense. I believe they're ranked 29th in DVOA versus the pass, if I'm correct. I'm not sure.
I can look it up for you. Go ahead and keep talking.
But it's just A.J. Green is a monster on the road. I mean, last year when he played Indianapolis, he only got eight targets, but he only put in 3 receptions, but he got a touchdown. I don't believe that's year. People are probably going to look at it and get scared, but I'm going to take A.J. Green at 7,300 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, he is, I believe, 7,900?
88, something like that.
Hold on. Yeah, he's 8,400. So he's priced up like with the elite on FanDuel. So give me A.J. Green at Indianapolis.
And the Colts, by the way, were 32nd DVOA versus the pass last year.
So the worst among the worst. They're the woke. Other than that, on the elite, those are my top 2 elite guys that I'm probably going to play the heaviest on.
All right, good stuff. All right, Tim, what do you got for receivers here? What are your elite receivers besides the one Gerson mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the guy that I will probably have the most exposure to, not named Antonio Brown, is going to be Mike Thomas. Again, I told you I was real big on Drew Brees this week, so I got to be big on Mike Thomas. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to him as well. Like Gerson said, my Brown exposure is going to come down to what that game looks like weather-wise, right up to lock. But I'm definitely going to have exposure regardless. And then the other guy that I'm going to have a lot of exposure to, and this goes kind of back to the lineup construction conversation we were having earlier, is if I don't have Melvin Gordon in a lineup, there's probably a good chance I'm going to have Keenan Allen. I may have some lineups where I go ahead and do the onslaught, Chargers onslaught, and run all 3. But I think I'm going to have a lot more Gordon, and then in non-Gordon lineups, I'm going to have a lot of Keenan Allen.
Good stuff. Yeah, good stuff. I love me some Keenan Allen. Well, y'all pretty much took all of my receivers that I had to talk about. I was talking about Mike Thomas, but Tim took him. I like Mike Thomas as well. Good stack with Drew Brees, as I mentioned earlier, and Alvin Kamara. The only other one I would mention, and this is more of a tournament play, and that's OBJ. And I know he's going up against a tough defense. I know it's Eli Manning. But there's a stat, and I don't have the exact numbers right now, but they kind of compared Antonio Brown's fantasy points per game over his career or something is like 1 point or 19 point something, and OBJ against top cornerbacks was averaging 23 points per game against top cornerbacks. So, if you think of it in that respect, they do force him the ball. He's he's Eli's go-to man. They're going to find a way to give him the ball, even with Ramsey covering him. So more of a tournament play. I would not play him in cash because there's potential that Ramsey shuts him down. But if you're playing a tournament play, if Beckham really gets his head in the game, I think he can be a top play there. Definitely contrarian as well.
I love that call. And on a note for that, Jalen Ramsey did hurt his ankle the other day. I think he rolled it or something.
Yep.
So basically, he was just trying to make an excuse before Odell Beckham sprained his ankle during the game.
So we can use that after the fact.
Bro, I love that call. I'm actually gonna be overly how do you say this?
Overweight.
Yeah.
On Odell Beckham on DraftKings and FanDuel because of that price. I mean, DraftKings, they just decided to say, hey, we're trying to test you, One thing you got to learn about DraftKings, and Tim can allude to it, DraftKings loves to use this whole defense versus wide receiver position, but they don't use what we use, our brain, and we use wide receiver versus cornerback. We use individual matchup because that's what's important when you're picking a wide receiver. It's not this wide receiver is not going to face 4 guys at once, He's going to, unless his name is like Calvin Johnson, but no, but I love that call. I'm telling you right now, I would not be shocked. OBJ comes out 110 yards, 6 receptions, and a touchdown. And then next thing you know, Jalen Ramsey goes on Twitter and says, "That's why he got his money. That's why he got paid. He's really good."
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Tim, let's go back to you now. Give us some of your mid-tier receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned one of them earlier in the podcast. That's going to be Chris Hogan. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Chris Hogan. Like I said, you attack Texans through the air. They're limited on wide receivers, so again, I'm going to have a lot. I probably will have more Hogan than Gronk, but I'm still kind of working out my percentages there. Another guy that I really like who tends to be really good early in the season and also much better at home is Larry Fitzgerald. We know over his career, Sam Bradford has traditionally targeted slot receivers, and Fitz lines up most of his routes from the slot. So I'm going to have a good amount of exposure to Larry. And then one other guy that I will probably have a lot of exposure to as well is going to be Jarvis Landry. Again, part of that depends on that game tomorrow in Cleveland. But I think that it was pretty clear, at least in the preseason, that was Tyrod Taylor's go-to guy. We know Josh Gordon didn't play in camp. He's been sitting out with the hamstring. And, they're going to have to throw the ball. We expect that, Pittsburgh's going to get up on them. And they're going to have to throw. 500 for Landry, 6,100 for Hogan, and 6,600 for Fitz. They all make good mid-range plays.
Yeah, good stuff. I love all those calls there. All right, Gerson, what you got? You got a big smile on your face. What do you want to talk about?
Well, fucking Tim stole two of my guys. No, I'm kidding. I'm telling you guys, Tim is like one of the smartest minds. I love it to elaborate with him, and a lot of times we're both on the same plays, and like they say, two heads is better than one or something like that. I don't know how that quote goes, but yeah, I love Hogan. I love Larry Fitzgerald, and Larry Fitzgerald, I mean, he is a target monster at the beginning of the season. He does kind of wear down at the end, but come on, he's like 50 years old. Let's give him a break. I mean, 7,300 on FanDuel. That is like my highest value, non-elite wide receiver, basically. And then after that, I like Hogan, like he said, but the guy I'm looking at right now, of course, is Stephon Diggs. If I'm going to have Cousin, I'm going to have Stephon Diggs. And his matchup is actually very, very great. Let me see if I can find it here. I just had it up. Stephon Diggs. Facing Richard Sherman. I don't know if you guys know, but Richard Sherman's not that fast no more. And Diggs, in my opinion, I think Diggs is going to burn him a couple of times. I would not be shocked if he starts complaining, oh, you guys got over the top or something like he always does, But I love Stephon Diggs in this game. A high over-under. He's going to get target. And I can't explain to people, the reason why the Vikings paid Cousin is because he's the perfect quarterback for all the weapons they have. All these wide receivers, they need a quarterback that's accurate,
Great.
And I love Stephon Diggs. Other than that, I mean, one thing I wanted to touch on Keenan Allen that does worry me a little bit. I'm not going to have a lot of Keenan Allen, and I know a lot of people are excited to play him because he's a top target, but his matchup, Kendall Fuller, is the player that the Kansas City Chiefs traded for what's his name, Cousin or whatever his name is?
Alex Smith.
Yeah. When Keenan Allen goes to the slot, more than likely Kendall Fuller will follow him, and Mike Williams will go on the outside. And right now on PFF, it's showing that it's actually a pretty tough matchup for him. But he's actually on the outside. He'll be a good matchup because he'll face someone else. But as we know, they move Keenan Allen all over the place. But that's just my opinion. I'm a little lower on Keenan Allen than I want to be, than I should be, I believe. I would not be shocked if Keenan Allen is the one play that I don't play, and I feel like a dumbass after. But, you got to take your, what do you call it, Jeff? Got to take it to the grain or something, whatever.
Go against the grain?
Yeah, go against the grain. Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, I love all those calls.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, on Keenan Allen, I actually looked at Keenan Allen. He actually struggled in the past against the Chiefs. But I will say the one that he really was starting to come on, it was the year he got hurt. I think he had 6 receptions in the first quarter or something. It was ridiculous. He was killing them. And of course he tears his ACL. He's out for the year. So that, kind of skews his overall numbers a little bit. So if you're looking at his last, 4 or 5 games versus the Chiefs, that game's included in there. So you got to kind of sort of temper your expectations a little bit. But I think Keenan Allen is definitely a volume monster there. I think that he does get the target, especially with their tight end. Hunter Henry is injured. So good call on there as well. Unfortunately for the mid-tier, y'all took all my calls. I don't really have anybody else to mention. I did like Stephon Diggs as well. He was also one of my top guys. If you watch the preseason, Kirk Cousins targeted Stephon Diggs a lot, more so than he did Adam Thielen. I think one game, he only threw 4 passes, and 3 of them went to Stephon Diggs. So if that's going to be what's going to happen in the regular season, I want all the Diggs I can get. So good stuff there, guys. All right, let's dig down into the deep depths here of wide receiver. There's a ton of value here, so let's go ahead and go to Gerson first, since he's getting complaining about Tim taking his calls. Let's go to you first, Gerson. What you got for your value?
Stealing my thunder. No, I'm kidding. I think he's not really a value player on FanDuel, but I did want to mention him because I'm pretty sure I'll regret it if I don't. Juju Smith-Schuster, whatever his last fucking name is.
That's right.
I always say Juju. So Juju is a great play on DraftKings and FanDuel for me. I think when Juju's not, when Le'Veon Bell's not playing, he becomes more of a target volume guy on the slot and on the outside. But then again, I always look at the weather. But anyway, so the value guys that I'm really, really high on, it's obvious he's the shock of all shock. Keelan Allen.
Keelan Cole.
What's that?
Keelan Cole. You said Keenan Allen.
Keelan Cole. Yeah, not Keelan Allen. I'm definitely not playing him. Remember that. Keelan Cole. So basically, when Keelan Cole played last year, this guy, when he started and Marquise Lee was out, he garnished almost over 21 targets. I mean, we look for a wide receiver, we look for target. And if we know anything about Blake Bortles, I mean, he likes to throw the little short route, you know. I mean, basically half of his plays are like quarterback waggles to Leonard Fournette and then throw the ball. You know, I don't know if you guys watched the game last year, Philadelphia versus the Jaguars, but I swear I predicted every freaking play he was going to do. I was like, all right, yep. But Keelan Cole, 4,500 on FanDuel. That is the cheapest among cheapest. I mean, you can't go cheaper than that unless you're the Cleveland Browns defense. But I love Keelan Allen. I mean, I think he is. What's that?
You keep saying Allen.
Wow, Keelan Cole. Damn it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Keelan Cole. Wow. But Keelan Cole on DraftKings, he's what, 3,700, Tim?
3,800, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just dirt cheap, and he's going to be sharp. This wide receiver is just going to be a top play. So I'm going Cole. I'm all in on him. If you're not playing Cole on FanDuel for cash game,
you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong, exactly. All right, Tim, what you got for DraftKings? I'm sure you had Keelan Cole as one of your guys too, but who else do you have on DraftKings for value?
Yeah, so again, going back to our conversation earlier, I think that there's so much value this week that you can build lineups a number of different ways. You can pay up at running back, you can pay up at wide receiver, you can pay down at running back, you can pay down at wide receiver. I generally consider the cutoff for value on DraftKings to be 5,000, but one guy Jeff alluded to earlier that I will definitely be keeping an eye on up to lock is Will Fuller. I think he has a great matchup this week. I think they're going to have to throw the ball a ton, and he's 5,100, so he's just above that line. I wanted to make sure and mention him. And the wide receiver I will probably have the most exposure to on DraftKings is going to be Emmanuel Sanders. He's 5,000. I think he's got he already looked in the preseason like he had a good rapport with Case Keenum. I already mentioned I like Keenum a lot for my tournament exposure. I think at 5,000 the price is right for Emmanuel Sanders. I will have Cole, as he mentioned. And then one guy that I will have a tournament exposure to, but probably not a lot, but I think he's priced right. It's going to be Michael Gallup for the Dallas Cowboys. He looked like he had the best connection with Dak Prescott in the preseason. They're going to have to throw against Carolina. I think they probably get behind. So if you're looking for a guy that's going to have low exposure, I know Jeff's going to touch on a guy here in a moment. But if you're not going to play Cole and you're not going to play that guy, I think you can get some real low ownership on Michael Gallup.
Nice. Yeah, the guy you mentioned here that I'm going to talk about is John Ross for the Bengals. Of course, we've already talked about pretty much the whole Bengals team. We've talked about Eifert, Dalton. We talked about A.J. Green. John Ross finally looks like he's going to be an actual player in this league. I think last year he was really pretty much for a first round pick. He may have been the worst receiver ever. I think he had one carry, not a catch, one carry, and he fumbled that carry. So that was all his stats. He didn't have a single catch the entire season. He did get hurt, and he missed most of the season, but terrible first-round pick. Now, in the preseason, he looked awesome. He had that one catch where I think it was like 50-yard catch where he faked out two guys to get into the end zone. If Dalton, 58 yard, Jason, thank you on Facebook for calling that out. 58-yard bomb, fake two guys out as he got into the end zone. Pretty awesome play there. If he can do something like that in the regular season, opposite of AJ Green, he won't get the double teams. He won't see the top cornerbacks. I definitely think he's going to be a great value play, a good pivot off of Keelan Cole, which everyone will be owning Keelan Cole. So definitely love me some John Ross. And there was one guy that I forgot to mention for tight end that we didn't talk about. My value tight end, and that's Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who's been ruled healthy now. He was questionable for a little while, but he will play. He's going up against the Giants defense, which was dead last against the tight end last year. I think they gave up the most touchdowns to all tight ends last year. So they didn't really improve the defense too much, especially in the middle of the field. So Austin Seferian-Jenkins could be a good pivot off some of those other value tight ends that we talked about earlier. All right, let's go to Gerson. I want to get your go ahead. You got something you want to say?
Yeah, I love how you said a little guy that I like, and you freaking called out John Ross. He's legit little. But, no, the one guy I wanted to touch on that might be another value that people don't see, very much is, John Brown for the Baltimore Ravens. He looked really good in preseason. Overall, him, and then Kenny Stills. Don't forget about Kenny Stills. This guy is 4,700 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel. He had 9 touchdowns in the year 2016 with Tannehill. So when Tannehill played, he loved Kenny Stills. So I love the matchup too. I mean, I'm not in love with the matchup, but I love his matchup because he's going to get volume and target. And so I like Kenny Stills at 4,700 on DraftKings. But on FanDuel, I had to think about it a little more, but overall, I just wanted to mention Kenny Stills, though.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, one more guy I had, too, is also in that same game is Amendola. He's going to be that short underneath guy that we know Tannehill loves. I think when in his career, Tannehill's depth of target is one of the worst in the league. He throws the ball like 6 yards over the line of scrimmage. So Amendola's going to work in that middle of the field. He's more of a DraftKings guy because he'll get the PPR points. He's not going to score a touchdown most likely. So on FanDuel, I don't like him quite as much, but on DraftKings, his price point, I believe. Tim, you got his price point there by chance?
On FanDuel?
On DraftKings, what's the price point of Amendola? Here he is, 4,200. 4,200 on DraftKings, full PPR. I mean, he could potentially lead the team in targets and receptions. And, if he could do that, then you got yourself a good play there at 4,200. So I wanted to mention Amendola as well. All right, so we're going to have this last segment here to wrap the podcast up. I'm going to get a little bit of history of it first before we get into it. So last year at some point, I had Gerson on the podcast, and he was sick. I mean, he had like the flu. He was coughing. He was sneezing. He was on medicine. He was kind of drugged up. And he made a call at the end of the podcast that we all kind of laughed at him for. This is early in the season before the Saints defense was supposed to be good or actually end up being good. Everyone thought the Saints defense was terrible. They looked terrible in the week 1 against the Vikings, I believe. Before Latimer came into his own, before that rookie that on the line came into his own, they were terrible last year, and we thought they were going to be terrible again. He called the Saints defense out, and I forget who they were playing. Gerson, you remember who they were playing?
They were playing the Panthers.
The Panthers. They were at Carolina, and we all kind of made fun of it, like, oh yeah, the Saints are terrible. They're not going to be able to shut down the Panthers. Turns out it ended up being, I think, the highest scoring defense that weekend. And, of course, the Saints go on to be a great defense the rest of the year. So we kind of created this segment based around Gerson being sick because we were saying he was sick and he was drugged up, and that's why he picked the Saints defense. So we're doing a sick call of the week. We're going to kind of expand it this year. We're all going to give our sick calls of the week, and we're going to keep track of them throughout the season to see who does better. So we're going to go with Gerson first. This has got to be a guy that's going to be very low owned. Semi-cheap. He's got to be on the cheap, and someone we haven't already mentioned yet. So, Gerson, let's go with you first. Who's your sick call of the week?
And it got to make you feel sick, too. Come on, guys. All right. I already touched this with a couple people, and I feel like when I touch about this, I go like this, hey, how do you guys feel about You kind of like lean in, Mike Gillislee of the New Orleans Saints, running back. He just got signed on last Sunday, but Boston Scott and Jonathan Williams are both not on the active roster right now. If they get on the active roster, I am a little bit more off him, but I like Mike Gillislee. He is 3,700 on DraftKings, I believe. Hold on, he's 3,400 on DraftKings. So him, and then on FanDuel, I'm not gonna play him too much, but on FanDuel, I'm pretty sure he's like 4,500 or something. I'm not even sure. Let's see, Gillisley. Yeah, he's 4,600. He's a touchdown guy. If New Orleans supposed to win by 9.5, he can get you those touchdowns. But the thing is, you're taking a big risk and a big gamble. So just remember, this is the big risk. But if you can get Gillisley to get in there, I mean, just remember last year in the first game versus the Patriots versus the Kansas City Chiefs, he had 3 touchdowns. And they used him the same way the Saints were going to use him. Are probably going to use him this week, as that second, like Mark Ingram role. I know a lot of people have told me he's probably going to get only like 10 touches or so. So I went back and checked when they faced Tampa Bay. In both games, they were favored by at least 8.5. And Mark Ingram got 17 carries in one game, and then 13 carries in the other game. But he had, I believe, 3 touchdowns total. And this is what I believe they're gonna be like in this game. So I like Mike Gillisley as my sick call of the week. I'm just gonna put him probably some of my rosters and pay.
Yeah, good stuff there. And if you're right, if he's in that Ingram role and they are up big, they used Ingram a lot last year as the sort of closer over Alvin Kamara. He was the one on the field, grinding out those yards, running the clock out. I think it's kind of miraculous to think that Alvin Kamara was as good as he was in fantasy last year, and Mark Ingram was top 10 in carries overall for the league. So if you think of how much they ran the ball last year, with Kamara being one of the top plays and Ingram being a top 10 in carries, it's ridiculous to think that. And I think if Gillisley can get any of that volume at all at that price point, he's definitely a good play. All right, Tim, let's go with you. What's your sick call of the week?
Unfortunately, I kind of already gave him away. Now my sick call of the week is Jesse James at tight end. Like you said, he's a catch the ball and fall down guy. Against Cleveland, as long as he falls down into the end zone, he'll pay off the salary. So, especially compared to the field, I will probably be overweight on Jesse James.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. I know somebody on Facebook had mentioned him too, so good call there. All right, I'm going to go totally off kilter here and mention somebody that I don't think anybody's talked about yet, and he could be boom or bust, and I think it's going to be a guy that. He looked really good in preseason. I think he was like the 3rd leading receiver in the preseason. He's playing in a high-powered offense. He may not get a ton of volume because he's probably the 4th receiver on that team, 4th, maybe even 5th receiver. But I think it's for the Saints, it's Sean Payton. I think he'll design something for him. That's Traquan Smith. He was literally the best receiver that the Saints had in the preseason. Outplayed Cameron Meredith. He outplayed Ted Ginn. They didn't play quite as much as he did, but he looked really, really good. And I think that Sean Payton's going to drop a few plays to get him involved in this. And the Saints have a history of creating good rookie receivers. Of course, they did it with Marcus Colston quite some time ago. They did it with Brandon Cooks. They did it with Mike Thomas. I mean, they've done it, consecutive years. And I think that Traquan Smith kind of fits that mold. Looked really, really good in preseason. He's minimum salary on both sites. $3,500 on DraftKings, $45 on FanDuel. I won't have a ton of exposure to him because I think he's basically boom or bust. He'll get that one, deep bomb touchdown, or maybe they get him in the red zone package or something. But he's my sick call of the week. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up this podcast here. We ran a little bit long, but not too bad. So good stuff there. We'll go around here real quick and give us your Twitter handles where we can follow you at, and if you have any fans ask you questions, where can we find you? Gerson, we'll go to you first. What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is @1FantasyG, capital F and then capital G. You can also find me at the DFS Roundtable. I do a live video on Saturday nights or Saturday 6-ish or so. I break down all my plays. I give out help. I answer questions from the people. But you can find me there on Saturday. And then, those are my 2 main areas that you can find me.
All right, good stuff. So the DFS Roundtable is a Facebook group that we're all part of. So definitely, if you just go to Facebook and look for DFS Roundtable, it'll show up. All right, Tim, where can we find you at?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at KetoDFS. That's KETO DFS. And like Gerson said, the best way to get a hold of us is on Facebook in the DFS Roundtable group.
All right, good stuff. And, of course, I'm Jeff Lambert. You can follow me at Jeff Lambert 77. I'm also in the DFS Roundtable, a bunch of other groups as well. I hope you all enjoyed the show, and have a good weekend. Hopefully we see you next week with a little bit more money in your bankroll. Have a good night.
$1 million, guys.
Yeah, win that million.
Definitely.